Well, Penticton in British Columbia is among the latest communities to cancel Canada Day celebrations in response to the discovery of remains at a former residential school in Kamloops. Penticton's mayor says the decision was made out of respect for the Indigenous community. 3 communities in northern Saskatchewan have also collectively cancelled official Canada Day events. Civic leaders saying they will instead focus on National Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. The communities joined Victoria, which announced it was cancelling its Canada Day celebrations earlier this month. Well, our next guest believes cancelling the festive aspects of Canada Day is the right thing to do. Delia Opikaku is a Cree lawyer from the Canoe Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan. She was the first Indigenous lawyer to be admitted to the bar in Ontario and Saskatchewan, and she's also a residential school survivor. She joins us right now from Canoe Lake First Nation. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So, as you heard, a growing number of cities and towns, they are making the decision to cancel this year's Canada Day celebrations. And it was interesting to hear the Mayor of Victoria, because Lisa Help says the community will instead reflect on what she describes as what it means to be Canadian in light of recent events. What do you make of this move?
I'm happy that they're doing it, especially because they're doing it out of respect of the suffering caused by the Indian residential schools. And I'm also happy that they're doing it in such a way, and I hope that they're doing it with knowledge that certain things happen to First Nations, Indigenous people in Canada that have affected seriously in a bad way their lives, especially with the Indian residential schools. And this may focus for Canadians the harms that were done. And it's a move towards reconciliation when people become knowledgeable of other people's and their way of life and their lives. And I'm hoping that this will happen because of the major attention that is being brought to the Indian residential survivors.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting to hear you say that, because as you probably know, Ottawa's still planning a virtual Canada Day celebrations this year around. Do you think that needs to be revisited given the discovery of what was seen in Kamloops, as well as the reaction to it right across our country?
Yes, it should be revisited, but in a positive way. I don't necessarily think that people need to cancel their celebrations, but at the same time, I think they should at the same time be aware of the history behind the creation of Canada, that Canada was founded not necessarily just by the settlers, but Indigenous people did contribute greatly. In fact, we probably would have a Canada without the fact that Indigenous people welcomed those settlers that came from Britain and France, and in fact saved them through the harsh winters using their medicines and their survival skills. Those kinds of stories need to be shared at the same time during Canada Day.
So not a cancellation, but an amendment to reflect the true history.
That's correct. I agree with that, the amendment.
Now, earlier this week, as you know, Bill C-15 was passed in the Senate, and that essentially clears the way for Canada, for this law rather, to get royal assent, and then Canada would then be adopting the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. What do you make of that move? Does that make you hopeful at all in this moment of reconciliation, perhaps?
It makes me very hopeful. It makes me very happy that the Senate did adopt the United Nations Declarations on Indigenous People, and also the fact that the initial Bill C-15 was improved so that the doctrine of discovery is recognized as being racist, and the fact that the preamble acknowledged that the treaty rights and the Aboriginal rights that Indigenous people have are evolving, and that they're not frozen in time, and that the Canadian courts have recognized that those rights are capable of evolution. That's very important, because that will strengthen the rights, not just to today, but the future, because there could be other court cases that will come forth and strengthen Canadian laws with respect to Aboriginal and treaty rights.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, as we're having this discussion, many Canadians will still want to celebrate Canada Day. You noted the fact that you were in support of amendment for the national virtual holiday. what about people at home? As you know, because of the pandemic, many Canadians will be at home on this Canada Day. So what would you like people to do to mark this year, if not in all the years to follow?
I don't know what kind of streaming is available on Canada Day, but if there are any Indigenous programs that are available, perhaps from other many of the media sources, I would appreciate if they would at least spend some time watching those shows that may be, in fact, showing Indigenous lives. With respect to those people from my home community where I am right now, I am told that they will be especially celebrating on June 21st, the National Indigenous Day, and also on our Treaty Number 10 Day, which is on June 28th and 29th here on the Canoe Lake Indian Reserve, where I am from and where I am now. And many Indigenous communities will be celebrating their own days, recognizing their own major days when they reached whatever kind of form of creation of their Indian reserves and their rights. And so there will be different celebrations. But going back to your question, being more aware of the lives of Indigenous people, whether on Canada Day or any other day, is so important for the ordinary Canadian person at home.
Delia, I thank you for this. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you for having me.
And that's Delia Opikaku, a Cree lawyer from the Canoe Lake First Nation in Saskatchewan.